would you say that land ownership at this point, as far as it being an investment, is more so for as a hedge against inflation and protecting your money, or are you actually looking to make some profit off of the appreciation?
Well, I think you can look at land as many things, and, every piece of land is unique and every buyer is unique, so the sets of goals are unique. But approached properly, a piece of land should furnish you an inflation hedge. It should be a moneymaker while you own it, whether it's actual income stream or tax savings.
Mm-hmm.
It should afford you the opportunity to add value to it. Let's take a house. If you paint your house, it doesn't cost much. It looks a lot better. It's worth a lot more.
Right.
You can do the same things to land, okay? If you paint a piece of land, you may be adding a pond. You may be fixing up the vegetative community. You may be establishing a couple-acre vegetable garden, kind of a mini farm. There's many, many things you can do, all of which can tie into your lifestyle, can tie in with the other prerequisites of your land purchase, safety, security, whatever it happens to be. And so the land can generate money or save you money during your ownership. And, of course, down the road, if you ever want to dispose of that asset, the value that you've added to it becomes your profit.
Right. So take us through.
There's very few things in life that you can love that'll love you back and will pay you for doing both.
So could you take us through Land for Love and Money? What do I find when I go through your book?
Well, Land for Love and Money is really the A to Z of land. The whole book is written anecdotally. I have a extensive 40-year, $1 billion plus career in land. I have consulted to foreign governments.
You said 40 year?
40 year, yes.
Huh.
And thousands and thousands of transactions, many of them as a principal. So I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and there's many instances where I have not heeded my own advice with drastic results. But those anecdotes are also included in the book. I don't pull any punches in this book.
Right.
I am very clear on the strategies which have worked, and been home runs. I'm very clear on the strategies which have been so-so, and I'm very clear on those instances where I made the wrong decision or I didn't listen to my own advice, and, the results have been disastrous. So the purpose of this book is, once again, to teach people how to love a piece of land, how to love it back, how to make the land love you back, and how to get paid for it in between and at the end. The book itself starts with the premise that you want to buy a piece of land or you're interested in land. How do you go about determining where? How do you go about determining what? And once you've decided where and what, how do you find the exact right piece of land that meets your financial criteria, that sings to your heart, because land does talk to you if you listen to it. There is an energy that is in the land. And at the same time, guard against the inescapable risks of owning a long-term asset. And that's one of the things I really emphasize in the book. Land is a long-term asset. Okay? This is for people who want to invest in things for years.
Right.
This is not for the investor who wants to pop in and pop out.
Right.
This is not like a house in the heydays where you could buy it, throw some paint on it, and spin it 3 months later. That's not going to happen. So you have to have a long-term mindset. And the book continues to tell you how to plan your ownership of the land, how to maximize both the income potential and the tax benefits from the land while you own it through the planning process, because the whole thing is based on an upfront plan. And then finally, how to make the improvements to the land that give you a 10-to-1 bang for your buck, i.e. $1 of improvement value creates $10 in real market value. And finally, how to get along in the small towns and the rural communities in which this land may be located, because your interaction with the court system, with the politicians, with your neighbors, with the school system will be key to your enjoyment, i.e. the love part of the land.
Right.
It can be an extremely rewarding experience if you use your head, and if you get on the wrong side of a small community, a small rural community, you're going to have a bad day.
Right.
So I have lots of fun stories about things I've done right and things I've done wrong. It reads much like a novel. The workbook is hard-hitting. The workbook is a DVD CD.
Okay.
And the workbook includes actual graphs, forms, charts that I've developed over 40 years, and actual contract provisions, which are highly unusual, almost never used, that I've also developed, along with real live samples of portions of conservation easements, which can be negotiated with the grantee, i.e. the nonprofit organization that accepts your ecological donation. Because a lot of people don't know to the extent to which many of these things can be negotiated. And how you negotiate something up front is generally how it's going to end up, good, bad, or ugly, in the end.
So what would you were saying that you have many stories, your successes and your failures, some things that ended disastrously. Could you give us one story of great success where you implemented all of the principles that you cover in your book and workbook, and then one story where you did not follow these same principles and it ended up the opposite as a result?
Yes, and I'll make it brief for you because I could talk ad infinitum. We'll start with a home run first. So a home run would be had some clients. They purchased a ranch. It was about 700 acres, just round numbers. And my advice to them was to plan this ranch for a series of conservation easements. They were relatively high income earners. They could really use the tax benefits. And they did. What they did was they did a series of 4 conservation easements on the property. They purchased the property, I'm rounding numbers here, for about $700,000. At the end of a 5-year period following the plan, they had 4 conservation easements on the property which achieved real conservation value. I mean, it's a beautiful piece of land with all sorts of natural resources. It's primary winter range for ungulates, that's deer and elk, which makes it very attractive to the right grantee. It bordered national forest. It had all the necessary ingredients for a large easement. And at the end of the day, their gross tax savings were slightly over $1.1 million. In other words, it divided in half. That saved them $500,000 to $600,000 in cash tax expense. They basically paid for about 85% of the ranch by doing the right thing, i.e., preserving it.
Right.
So that is I would consider that a home run story. And then on the less than home run side, I'll give you an example. We purchased a piece of property. This is about 25 years ago, and I had all sorts of grandiose plans for this. And all the red flags were up the flagpole, flapping in a stiff breeze. And I went, I'm smarter than those flags. I'm smarter than the market, and I can make this work because I convinced myself X, Y, and Z will come to my rescue, and everybody will love this, and it'll be it'll be terrific. I'll have conservation values, and people will buy it, and da-da-da-da-da. To make a long story short, I lost my butt on it. In fact, lost my entire investment in that piece of property, plus some, and it was all because I didn't follow my very own rules.
Huh. Because so what does that mean?
The rules and universal energy of land are inescapable. If you go against them, you are not going to have a good day.
So does that mean that the value of the land completely dropped? How did it manifest?
No, what happened is I put improvements into the ranch in terms of resource and other improvements.
Yeah.
Which I spent dollars which did not return exponential dollars on value.
Uh-huh.
So in the end, the purchase price plus the cost of the improvements I made for the market that I wanted to eventually, because I had planned to own it for 10 or 20 years, to the market that might eventually be a purchaser, far exceeded what that market would pay for that piece of land with or without the improvements. I mean, it's kind of like, let me give you an analogy. It's kind of, and everybody knows somebody who's done this, and maybe everybody listening or reading your blog has done this themselves. They buy a house, they go, I'm going to remodel it, and I'm going to do A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And at the end of A, B, and C, they go, oh, God, this would be great if I added on this addition, and maybe I ought to put a pool in, and I think I'll put in an underground, whatever, and I'm going to put in a rock face sauna and whatever, the improvement might be, and they start going overboard. And before they know it, the house has way more cost in it than they will ever get back from the market.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, they exacerbate the problem by financing against those costs.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a situation which, unfortunately, many people in America find themselves right now, where their house and their land is worth less than their mortgage.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In other words, you can't get carried away. You have to have self-discipline. You have to know the plan up front, and you have to know exactly what your exit strategy is going to be.
Right.
Even if you are buying a piece of land that you intend to give to your great-great-grandchildren, stuff happens in life. People die. There's divorces. There's sicknesses. There's illnesses. There's macro events like the economy or, the current government. I mean, there's things that you can't control that may affect the best laid plans of mice and men for the multi-generational long term. And you need to have an exit strategy, and the more exit strategies and options you have, because you've planned well and you have invested in your land relative to a budget that you stick to with tenacity, and that will give you an out under the worst conditions. And when you forget those rules, like I did on this example I just gave you,
right.
Guess what? You're going to have a big old tarantula. It's going to clomp itself on your butt, and that's going to be the deal.
Wow.